This is the Africa Daily Show on Africa Global Radio, AGR, our story, our growth, our future. I am Prince Benjamin. Feel free to call me PB. Barry Musa is here, so is Sandra Kwashi. All right, we are on about a very, very important conversation today. And it has to do with the freedom of the press, freedom of journalists to report critical pieces on government, or let's say powerful people speaking the truth as they say to power. It has to do with their safety, not just the safety of their careers, but the safety of their lives. In Ghana, we have experienced some unfortunate things in this year where a journalist was assaulted in their line of duty. Also, a media house and a program that was going on live at this media house, the media house called UTV, and or let me say the Despite group, and their UTV was stormed by some irate youth who were displeased with some comments, made by a pundit on a program which is on UTV, and it's called United Showbiz. So they stormed this place, disrupted the program. It became a huge, conversation. These men were arrested. About 16 of them were arrested. Also, during the main opposition, NDC's, they had this program at a constituency of theirs, and I think it's South Ododo, if I'm recalling correctly. A journalist with City Radio and City TV, which is an Accra-based media brand, was also assaulted. There is Ahmed Swale, who was with Tiger Eye, the investigative journalism brand led by Anas Aremiao Anas, who was also killed, and that followed, a politician, a popular politician who is currently a presidential aspirant, outing, if you will, his identity, and even giving details about his whereabouts and all of that. He was attacked and killed, and it's become a very touchy subject. Anytime his name is mentioned. The stats, even from the Ghana Journalism, Association, is not even pretty for 2019 and 2023. When we talk about attacks, 45 recorded cases of attacks on journalists between 2019 and 2023 alone in Ghana, and this reported by the Ghana Journalism Association, the GJA, led by Mr. Albert Jumfor. And because of this, we're talking about the assault of journalists today on the Africa Daily Show. We have on the line right now a gentleman who is not a stranger, of course, to the program. He is Ebenezer Digol. Eben Digol? Hello? 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 Do we have Ebenezer Digol on the line? Do we have Ebenezer Digol on the line? Let's try one more time. Eben, can you hear me? I think I heard something. Hello, Eben, can you hear me? Okay, we're gonna try. I can hear some feedback from Eben's end. Ebenezer, can you hear me? All right, let's call him back and reconnect. Hopefully that would be that would work. All right, hopefully that would work. But yeah, 45 recorded cases of attacks on journalists between 2019 and 2023. I've got Barry Musa in the studio. Let me just ask him. He is, would you call yourself an entertainment journalist? I know you're an on-air talent, on-air personality, but...
Yeah, I would categorize myself the entertainment lifestyle journalist, yeah.
Right. Have you suffered any attack? before? In any form?
Fortunately, no, not really. But I mean, I've seen a couple of. I've seen ones that are really brutal. You know, things that experiences that one shouldn't have been exposed to, because you know there is that thought and fear of what if that was you, and the thought of it could be you someday, right? Because you never know what you'd be reporting on or what you'd be covering, and then you eventually become the target, right? So I haven't been a victim before, but ones I've seen and seen firsthand, it wasn't a pretty experience. Not at all, man.
Right. Do we have Ebenezer De Gaulle on the line? Hello?
Hello.
Yes. Eben. Hello? So I heard Ebenezer De Gaulle say hello, but I believe he is struggling to hear us. Hello, Ebenezer, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, Ebenezer, can you hear me? Hello? Okay, I can hear Ebenezer, but I believe he can't hear me. All right, so let's get that sorted out. It might be a technical glitch. These machines always remind you that they are indeed machines. But yes, this is the Africa Daily Show on Africa Global Radio. We're going to get that sorted out, the technical challenge, and we will restore our connection to Ebenezer De Gaulle. We're working on that at the moment. Yes, this is the Africa Daily Show. I am Prince Benjamin.
Don't ever let them hurt you in any way. And never let them steal and take the best of you. Keep building cities from the ground. We rise and weave the wave. Don't ever let them hurt you in any way. And never let them steal and take the best of you. Keep building cities from the ground. We rise and weave the wave. Mother Nature has a way of warning us. A time bomb set on a lost countdown. Do you hear it? Will you stop it? Won't you listen? We need each other now. We need each other.
Of course, we need each other now, and that includes journalists. We can't take their lives. We need them. How do you stay entertained? How do you stay informed? How do you stay educated on trending issues, current affairs, history, and the like? Who is going to be the voice for you in the corner? For me, if journalists are no more. Today is International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. We are talking about the attack on journalists and journalism. I've given you two instances, and I mentioned that we have the gentleman Ebenezer De Gaulle on the line. Let's see if this time the machines are in our favor. Ebenezer.
Yeah, PB.
All right. Good afternoon to you, and thank you for your time.
Right, good afternoon. Ebusian, good afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay. Ebusia in Akan or in Ghana, it means family. So yes, for those who are, outside of the country and you may be confused, Ebenezer De Gaulle has great interest in politics. He's an award-winning journalist. He also has, served in so many capacities. Radio presenter. He's written. He's produced shows, and he's done this in a number of regions in Ghana. So he definitely has a stake in this conversation, if you will. But I'd like to know, Ebenezer, have you been attacked by anybody in your line of duty as a journalist?
Yes. In 2018, first of all, good afternoon to everyone listening to us, morning, afternoon, evening. So in 2018, I was morning show host at Cool FM in Ho. And you know how morning shows go. It becomes partisan, political at the end of the day. So we decided to be different. That is, we didn't want to do the usual thing, be more objective, have a national state conversation. Some people were not happy with it. And, whenever conversations like that, happens, definitely somebody's not going to be happy. So one day in the course of conversations like that or dialogues like that, someone calls into the show and it's like, you, this boy, if we come into the studio, they will come and beat you. And this is a foot soldier. I was like, game on, come and let's see. So by the time the show was done, I was told that a group of young men were at the reception looking for me. And the whole dialogue or conversation around them was how they were going to make sure they show me, quote unquote. But for the intervention of the receptionist at the time, who came and was like, Charlie, Ben, this is not really looking good. The luck I had was they heard my voice a lot, but they didn't know my face. I wasn't the journalist who was always going into the public, spaces.
Right.
Reasons being that I was new in that region. So I didn't think it wasn't a big deal for me when people invited me to social gatherings. I was very selective. So a lot of people knew my voice and my name, but they couldn't put a face to it. So the receptionist just said I should, move about like a regular staff and then see what was going to happen. And the police headquarters was just 300 meters away from us. They listened to the show every day, but nothing like that. Any kind of intervention was made. The general manager was listening. They just called to say, hey, Ben, be careful, And that's what I did. So I was careful. I went out looking rather ordinary in their eyes, got a taxi, and then left for the house. And the show ended at 10. This incident happened around 10:30. They were there till like 2 because they wanted to just see my face, and then deal with me. The following morning, and I came on the airwaves, and these people called back and they were like, they were at the studio yesterday and I was hiding from them. So yeah, that was how close I came to maybe physically manhandled, but verbally there. Many times. Yeah,
plenty times.
I'm baptized every morning with that.
to put it mildly. You recall recently how sympathizers of the governing New Patriotic Party, the NPP, stormed a studio in Accra. That's United Showbiz,
right?
And the station it airs on, that's UTV in Accra. Given the story you just told and how these 16 men who were arrested, how they stormed this studio, disrupted the program, how did you process it when the news got to you or when you saw the footage on social media?
Right. I wasn't too surprised, but I was feeling sad for the presenter. Now, for me, there's no...
Hello, Ebenezer, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. Carry on, please.
Right.
We lost you.
Yes. So I know that for a very long time, this presenter will not be the same again on the airwaves. Whenever she's presenting and there's an argument or something going on, she's going to always look over her shoulders. So I am thinking that right now, and I'm hoping she's received some kind of psychological intervention because she needs it if she's really going to put up, good shows subsequently. But again, it's a flaw in our media space and how they manage talent. The only reason why something like this can happen is because of ownership. The ownership of the media and who owns what, and that is a very big challenge as far as this particular conversation we are having. It's pretty big. Am I still on air, please?
Eben, what you're saying is very important. The ownership
right.
of the media or the if you will, investors in media brands, founders of media, enterprises. It's a very important area to to put under the microscope, for want of a better expression. I would like to also know if you heard about the NDC's is it Odododio constituency event during which the City FM, City Radio journalist was assaulted, and the scene was quite brutal as well. I'm not talking about the assault, exactly, but where the meeting happened. Chairs were broken, and it was unsightly, if you will.
Right.
Yes, and so you wouldn't even the confrontation that the journalist suffered is one thing, but also seeing where it happened and the chaos, the mental, shock is also another thing to consider. All these things can put fear into the journalist. And you mentioned how the United Showbiz presenter surely has been shaken, right? And moving on or going forward, how she presents, it may take an impact. I'll be honest to say, I've not checked on the show since the incident happened, but we may see one difference or another. If she's not strong. Thankfully, on her part, she wasn't manhandled. It was the City FM, City Radio journalist who was, confronted. Ahmed Swale's death also, I mentioned in the introduction. I don't know if you caught it, but there is that as well. But 45 recorded cases of journalists who have been attacked by the Ghana Journalism Association. That's a stats from them. So it's to put fear into the journalist. You've been a morning show host, and it takes a lot of guts. You've spoken about how you walk through your to be attackers,
right?
And because they didn't know your face and they only knew your voice, they could not recognize you to attack you.
Sure.
How do you then find your voice? The next morning or for the next program, how do you speak truth to power when it's not even the figures that you are calling to be accountable, but it's their foot soldiers. It's your fellow brother and sister who is at the bottom of the totem pole who wants to attack you. How do you find your voice?
Truth to power, speaking truth to power, in my observation, in my situation, became quite difficult. So I started personally, anybody who was following me will notice that I started exercising a lot of vocal pauses. Even if I knew the truth, I would want to think on my feet twice before saying them. Even if there were facts that were presented, I would want to go after someone safer, had mentioned it or led it into the public space. So it's not going to be easy, or it wasn't easy for me. And I think it was that way because I didn't feel I was protected by my management being my employers. My employers were, they were in bed with the government, let me put it that way. And then the calls started coming. And mostly came this way. Your boy is making things difficult for us. Your boy is making the president look bad in the region. Your boy is making regional minister look bad in the region. Those were the criticisms coming to me. So your CEO calls you and it's like, Eben, why are you not letting this group of people feel free on the show? And my rebut will always be, well, what I don't understand what feel free means. It's supposed to be a morning show. You hired me to do a certain job. And that is what I think I'm doing, in my opinion. So I don't understand when you mean by I'm not letting some people feel free on the show. So you may not be able to speak truth to power again. But thankfully, I had a good production team. Now, though management wasn't superb. I had a very superb production team who were fearless, So the whole mindset was, irrespective of whatever management thinks, the public thinks, we are going to still do what we do and do it well, So I would say I, gleaned on their courage, on their spirit to continue doing what I was hired to do. But it has never been easy. To speak truth to power, you need to be protected. And I think that is what is missing with a lot of journalists today. We don't have a lot of protection. There are issues to really speak about. But today's journalists, chances are, would be passive about it, or would even require you to pay him some money, to speak on the issues. Now, it's true that there are financial issues in the media sector, but when a journalist takes money today, it's not just for the financial thing. It's actually for protection. That money now is protecting him. So if an MP gives me money to cover a story, indirectly, this MP is protecting me. And I am projecting whatever angle or issues he wants me to. So it's a very difficult situation. And the abuses have been happening. It has been happening, PB. Since we started taking the media thing seriously, media personnel, journalists, and it's not just journalists, communicators too. Let us be quick to add that people who come onto the show to speak get attacked. And that's the case of UTV.
Right.
The attack
the
was
pundits,
yes.
So the social commentator A+.
Exactly. So the communicators too are at risk over here. So people tend to think that this is just the media's problem. But what they do not understand is that anybody, any day, as long as you are discerning, you can be a communicator at any time, because it is social media. Whatever you put out there, indirectly, you are communicating something. So, and you could be attacked for that. So it's not just them affair. It's not just a media thing. Media people affair. If it attacks the media guy next to you, it means that your freedom, your voice as a citizen is under attack too. It was happening for a long time. We never took it seriously. They were doing it to journalists. We didn't take it seriously. And they took it to court.
Yeah.
If you remember, they took it to court.
They chased there's a case where, I think in 2016, was it?
Yeah.
When a judge was chased out of court, yeah.
A judge was chased out of court.
Yeah.
Now, this is supposed to be, a judge is representing the other arm of government that is supposed to protect, everyone, if you like.
Yeah.
Because the arms of government, checks and balances, protecting each other, looking out for each other. But we didn't do anything about it. We didn't, law and order just didn't work. We just turned a blind eye, kept sweeping things under the carpet. Journalists were beaten. We didn't take care of them. And now they took it to court. Now, if you would be honest, I think that it was around that time that they probably started taking this whole matter of abuse on journalists more seriously. Because they thought it was just us until it affected them, So it brings me to the point of the other arms of government. I don't think that journalists have a sense of appreciation for their efforts as far as the freedom of the press is concerned. I don't think the executive or the judiciary have been so helpful in this regard, in protecting the media. If it has to do with their strikes and all of that, they are quick to put pressure on the media to project it. But when any person in the media suffers any form of violence, I think everyone is just lax to respond to the situation. Even our own people as media, in the media fraternity. And these abuses, especially the verbal ones, is traded most of the time between journalists on the airwaves because of partisan politics. I don't know if you've had time to pay attention to opposition stations and then regime stations. You find an individual on the station attacking another journalist on the other platform, trading insults and sometimes it gets so personal. And if we are doing this, I just feel like we've given, the opportunity for others to abuse us. So
right. So that's very important. You've outlined some very key factors. When we look at this impunity to attack, right, journalists. One of which is the owners of these media houses. It's something surely
Right.
that should be looked at. The floodgates should not be opened so that just anybody with ulterior motives can, own a media house, especially when they are connected to political powers. Um, but delicately considered also because you don't want to infringe on other freedoms that people have. You've also mentioned the case where people are bought, right? To put it bluntly, some journalists are bought. And definitely if a politician feels there's a price tag to you,
right.
If he feels you are in his pocket, he can attack you if he decides against protecting you, as you said. If not, then his opponent knows that, you're on the market and you are in the pocket of this fellow. So they can take you for granted and possibly attack you. You've also mentioned how journalists should have mutual respect for each other. I mean, we can debate. We can have our arguments. We can, challenge each other and our opinions and our notions on issues. But we should be seen showing respect to each other, so people don't take us for granted. Is there anything else? Would you say there is? What would you say really? Because it looks like this regime or this administration has experienced a lot of impunity when it comes to the attack on journalists, right? Yeah. Do you see any reason? Do you think there's a reason why, under the watch of President Akufo-Addo, who oddly is a human rights lawyer, right, or advocate,
activist, right?
Yeah. Strangely, it's under his watch that some of these things are happening, and we are scoring quite terribly on the freedom of speech or expression.
World Freedom Index.
Yeah, the index or the chart.
Right.
I'm not saying that just because there's a correlation, there's a cause, right? But do you think there is a cause, or is just a correlation? And how can we even explore that angle or that conversation?
I think President Akufo-Addo's government, especially the National Communication Authority under his government, had a very beautiful opportunity to, do some good in terms of the media restructuring that happened some time ago. I was hoping that in an intervention like that, they would look at really the matters objectively. But the whole point of the restructuring seems as if they were targeting the opposition to disarm owners of frequencies who belonged to other political parties. That for me was very, very unfortunate. So by that decision, he indirectly empowered folks in his regime with licenses to go out and misbehave. There are 707 licenses for radio. Currently operating is about 500 of them. And one would think that this pluralism will reflect in the opinions.
Right.
But research is showing that we have media pluralism, but very little to show for when it comes to opinions.
Right. So multiplicity of media brands, but no diversity when it comes to thought.
No diversity,
and
yes. Very little diversity. So what is really happening? For me, I think that, and we've known this, radio stations, media houses are political tools. They are political tools. The political parties use them, for elections, for sending out information or what, for controlling the masses. Let me just put it that way.
Right.
So we need to start if anything needs to be done right now, I think it should start with the NCA. The NCA was set up to be an independent body, but somehow it has become another tool of the state, of the government rather. So if anything will be done, I think the NCA would have to start.
That's the National Communications Authority.
National Communications Authority, yeah.
Right.
They will need to really evaluate, one, the licenses, who owns what, and the funny thing about the licenses is it's not transparent. We don't know that the names and faces behind these licenses. We need to know who is owning what.
Transparency.
And we need to make sure, put a certain cap on how much an individual can have.
Yeah, because we have individuals who have, they by themselves, just one individual owns 16 frequencies.
16. How? What do you want to do with that?
Right.
You know, it's so I think that should be looked at, and if there is any law that we can put in place, you know, to check this, we should immediately do that, because it's power now. It's an element of power now. Frequency is an element of power now. As far as this democracy is concerned, it's an element of power. So we need to be deliberate about it. No individual should own maybe more than 2 or 3. That is fine. Beyond that figure, I think it's a problem.
Right.
Yes. So I think that's where we can start from. And if we can do that, then we would also know who owns what, the individuals behind them, what is their history, and all of that. It's very, very important. And then secondly, I think owners of media houses should make the schedule flexible for journalists. Guys, let's be realistic. There is no money in the business. There is no money. Journalists in Accra today are earning 500 cedis a month. In 2023.
Approximately $45
a month. 500 cedis. It's not good. It's not good. And if a journalist wants to do a side thing, or even grow their capacity so they can earn more, some, management seem to not like the idea too much. I think we should grow out of that mentality. Let's give room for journalists to build capacity. When they build capacity, they can, earn, money on the side. Because the money from advertisements is not enough. In 2021, I was with one of the biggest brands in the country, and the leader of the station was telling me that with all the many advertisements money coming through, they are only able to pay for half of the electricity bill. And I was like, so how do you pay for salaries and all of that? And this is someone in management, and the answer was, only God knows. And this is by far, at the time, the biggest brand in the country, with so many other, stations across the country and all of that. So the money coming through advertisement is not enough. So radio stations should diversify. And I think maybe this is where AGL is strongly leading. Going digital is one of the ways to, because the market is really vast now, and you can't just think that everybody is listening through a certain frequency. You are now competing with the person holding a smartphone. Someone on that smartphone also has the attention of the consumer. So diversification is very important if we are really going to be this situation.
Right. So that also answers the question of diversity of thought. So if because a frequency is expensive, it's more than $1 million Ghana cedis, right?
Actually,
that's outside
$1 million now.
Yeah, that's outside. I'm even talking about, these are small communities outside of the capital, right? But if you want it in the capital, we are talking dollars.
Dollars. Yeah,
we're talking dollars. So it's out of the reach of a lot of people. However, we can have diverse thoughts if it's it's less expensive if you can just put up your smartphone, or, as you said, AGR. It's not as capital intensive as a regular or a traditional media setup. So we would definitely encourage, these forms of establishments, which will also go a long way to empowering and employing a lot more people. Would you also say that there are times when journalists are unprofessional and necessarily need straightening, if you will, for want of a better expression?
Right.
Because if not because I'm anti this gentleman I'm about to mention, or any of the other establishments or figures that I've mentioned before, but when Bull God said, because of the Men's Gold saga, the defunct gold trading company Men's Gold issue, Akufo-Addo would not see a certain year. That definitely was misplaced utterance. Right? That definitely was calling for interrogation, an arrest and interrogation, because what exactly do you mean by the president would not see this year? Right?
Yeah.
So he was called and interrogated, but people also read that as muzzling of the media.
Right.
Yeah. How do we also hold journalists accountable, and how can a journalist even hold themselves accountable for some of the things we say? How can we gatekeep some of the things that we say, so we don't unnecessarily fall victim to all forms of interrogations?
Right. So the University of Ghana had a report recently, the Department of Communication, and in this report, they stated that journalists, majority of journalists knew the rules and regulations, but somehow were not able to fully, abide by them. I think the challenge there is a law and order thing. Order is very important. If the journalist does it the first time and you don't correct him or her, he's going to repeat it. So it comes down to the producers of the show, who's producing that show. And again, it would be down to the management of the station or the platform. What are they putting in place to make sure that my on-air staff, abide or operate within a certain framework? What measures do we have in place to make sure that my commentators come and then don't just say anything? Let me take you back to the time I was doing the morning show again. Someone insulted me on the platform. I didn't do anything about it. Subsequently, this person insulted another person, and I felt that was unfair. So I asked the person to apologize, and the person said he wasn't going to apologize. And then I didn't even think. I just said, leave my studio. And it was all over. And I want to believe it's one of the things that probably, resulted in the attacks, subsequent attacks that came later. I drove this person out of the studio. Maybe the decision I took was rushed, but there's one thing I know. Anybody who sat on that platform didn't think of doing that. Didn't go insulting or abusing anyone. They were careful with their language. So it's implementation. There are rules and regulations, but how are we implementing them? How good have we become implementing our laws over time? It's a big problem. And if we would be a bit more deliberate about the provisions made by Ghana Journalists Association as far as things like this is concerned, I think a lot more journalists will be safe. A lot of commentary will be more tasteful, and objective rather than partisan
and inflammatory.
Yes. So
right.
it's very important that we look at some of these things.
Right. Ebenezer, we could, definitely protract this conversation, but time is against us. However, I believe that we've gotten a lot of important things through to our listeners, and even food for thought for us in the studio.
Yes.
With this,
and if we can, it's important that I don't know if the GJA will be the best institution to do this, but journalists do not really feel protected by their own association. And it's very bad.
Right.
I don't remember seeing GJA really supporting, for the lack of a better word, a journalist, to the end.
Standing by a journalist, who's been assaulted.
Bringing closure to a certain matter. Most of the time, we just hear press statement and we are talking to the CID. To what end?
There are also journalists who are not members of the GJA.
Right.
Yes. So you may argue also that they are not exactly the responsibility of the GJA because they do not even know their person, unfortunately. It's a double-edged sword where the GJA, as you're saying, should not appear to be toothless, but should be.
It's because I think that the GJA hasn't been quite. They haven't shown that authority over time.
It's been quite ceremonial.
Exactly. It's like a club. It's become like Chelsea Football Association.
Right. Or a club at a tertiary institution.
Yes. Yeah. We just meet and then pay dues and show for funerals and all of that. Let's move beyond that framework. I believe this was, and I'm not in any way trying to push his agenda or anything, but I saw some reasoning in this attempt. Prior to the 2012 elections, you could say it was political. President John Mahama sort of hinted that he was a member of the GJA, and it was news. It buzz, probably, helped his electoral fortunes and all of that. But I think in a way it was saying that if you have the slightest association with anything media in the country, you should consider yourself a member of the association. The association should make effort to try and enrich you.
Right.
I heard this gentleman on your platform. His name is that. I don't think he's a registered member of the association.
Right.
We need him. We need people like that. The numbers are important if we want to become a strong force to be,
So you can regulate.
Exactly.
and also advocate. At the same time, regulate your members and also advocate for them. So internal and external, duties of the Ghana Journalism Association.
Producers Association were able to punish Yvonne Nelson some time ago for speaking rudely, I think, to a senior member in the industry. They queried her. She was sanctioned, and then it worked. I think she spoke rudely to Abdul Salam Mumuni, and she was punished for that. I don't remember the last time GJA sanctioned a journalist here in this country for saying the wrong thing on the airwaves or for communicating something that is not a fact on the airwaves.
Right.
If it can move beyond organizing awards
and writing letters.
Yes, and being something more stronger in this area, I think it's really going to help us.
Right.
Or, they are attacking us because there's really nobody behind us. Yeah.
All right. In the words of the famous Wendy Shea, Mr. Albert Jumfor, I should say, Mr. Albert Jumfor, please wake up. That's the president of the Ghana Journalism Association. Ebenezer Digor, thank you so much for making time to speak to us.
Thank you, PV.
This could be a very long conversation, but I think we've been able to cover some important ground with this little time that we had. So thank you so much, and see you in the studio one of these days.
Sure, thank you too. Have a good day.
All right.